How's everybody doing? I hear a lot of kids are really enjoying our community read book, which you can't see because I'm using a blurred screen. It is The Lion of Mars. We're really enjoying the adventures of Belle and some of the other kids who are living on Mars. It's pretty awesome. So tonight we're going to be starting on page 106 and 107. We have a secure communication that is coming in from Commander Dexter to the U.S. Terrestrial Command with a situation report. We are missing the following requested items from the supply ship: rosemary spice, fever pain reliever, socket wrench, replacement parts for the rover as listed on the attached document, moisturizing skin cream, blue eyeshadow, mascara, and black eyeliner for the teenagers. Cy Dexter, Commander, Expeditionary and Settlement Team, United States Territory, Mars. Chapter 12, Family Name. I stared at the glowing digislate as I sat at the desk in the COR. Memes always made us kids write thank you transmissions for the supplies from Earth. She said it was good manners. I hated it. It was awkward writing to people you'd never met, but there was no getting out of it. Dear Earth Command, thank you for the supplies. Salty Bill made chocolate cake. It was delicious. Do you think you could send some kittens? Please thank the children at Lincoln Elementary for the quilt. It is warm. The signature part of the letter was always a bit confusing. I knew that on Earth, people had two names, a first and a last one. Memes explained that the last name indicated your family. But here on Mars, we children only had first names. Part of me thought having a family name would be nice. In the end, I signed it the same as always. Your friend, Belle. After I was done, I clicked send. The supper bell rang softly in the distance. Time to go. I made my way down the stairs, and as I neared the bottom, I heard Phineas and Cy arguing loudly. You know my feelings on this, Cy, Phineas said. How could I not? Cy replied sarcastically. You won't stop telling me I'm wrong. It's short-sighted and foolish, Phineas shouted. This was shocking. I'd never even heard Phineas raise his voice, let alone shout. Nonsense. You're letting your emotions get in the way, Phineas said. It has nothing to do with emotions. It's what's best for the children. They are all our children, Cyrem, Phineas insisted. I love them too. I want them to lead happy, fulfilling lives, and they can't do that confined here. This wasn't meant to be a prison. We are not going to discuss this again, Cy said, cutting him off. Then there was a sound of feet walking fast down the corridor. A moment later, I heard Phineas and his cane slowly following the same way. I waited a few minutes, then went to the mess hall. Everyone was already eating. I watched as Phineas and Cy calmly discussed which vegetables to put on rotation. You wouldn't have known that they'd just been at each other's throats. Eliana was giving us lessons today. She was my favorite teacher because she was fun. She taught us how to drive the rover and make rockets. Lately, she'd been teaching us to speak French. Cy didn't approve of this, but she said knowing different languages was important. All right, Eliana said, let's run through our basic phrases. Repeat after me. Bonjour. Je voudrais les loups. Où sont les toilettes? That means where are the toilets? Vera made an annoyed noise. I don't know why we have to learn French. French people aren't very nice, you know. I think you have the wrong idea about them, Eliana said. I remember them chasing us with those weapons, Vera muttered under her breath. Before anyone could respond, the emergency alarm started blaring. Again? I said. We followed the sound to the mess hall. Cy was right behind us, which meant this was a real emergency. Who pushed the alarm? He demanded as everyone else rushed in. He swiftly disabled it. I did, Salty Bill shouted, waving a spatula. Fire? Then he shook his head wildly. He looked terrified. Then what? Cy demanded. It's in there, he said, pointing his shaking spatula towards the storage closet. It? I turned to the rest of the kids and silently mouthed, alien? Trey's eyes widened. Albie shook his head, and Flossie's mouth opened into an O. Even Vera seemed a little scared. But Cy just grabbed a plastic broom that was leaning against a wall. What good was a plastic broom? And walked into the large closet. A moment later, we heard him yelp. Cy, Darby hollered, and ran in after him. He grabbed Salty Bill's prized rolling pin. It was made of real earth wood, and it was solid. We waited breathlessly. Are you kidding me? Darby shouted. That was it. As if on cue, we crowded into the storage closet like an invading army. I struggled to get a good look. Nothing seemed out of place. Over there, Cy said, pointing to a counter where a plate of muffins was on a cooling rack. A small, furry creature with a long tail and whiskers was nibbling a muffin. I thought aliens would be bigger, Vera said, clearly unimpressed. That's not an alien, Cy said. It's a mouse, I exclaimed. A real live Earth mouse. Oh, it's so cute, Flossie cried. But how did it get in here? Albie asked. Must have hitched a ride, Ileana said and chuckled. More like an entire family hitched a ride, Darby said, nudging an open bag of flour with his foot. A bunch more mice ran out. Can we keep them? Flossie asked. They're little monsters, Salty Bill shouted. Look what they did to my muffins. I just baked them. I don't think that's a good idea, Eliana began. Mice can eat through wiring. Just one mouse. Flossie wheedled her brown eyes wide. Please. Meme's face softened. No one could resist Flossie. One mouse, Memes agreed. You'll have to put it in a box with a lid and air holes to keep Leo away from it. Which one? I asked. The mice raced madly around the floor. Cy snorted. Whichever one you can catch. Eliana helped us design a plastic habitat for our new pet. It had pod-like buildings and tubes for the mouse to run around in. We lined it with a torn-up algae paper, Phineas's suggestion, and a little bowl of water. It looked like a mini Mars settlement fit for a mouse. That turned out to be the easy part. The hard part was coming up with a name we could all agree on. We'd been debating names for the last hour. Nobody was happy with any of them. Although Trey was pushing hard for John Glenn. I've got it, Flossie said, clapping her hands. Let's name him Muffin. Muffin? Trey asked. Well, we found him eating muffins, Florrie insisted. We all stared at the mouse. With its soft-looking fur and twitching whiskers, the name fit perfectly. Except something was missing. We need to give him a last name, too, I said. A last name? Flossie asked. He needs a last name so that he knows he's part of our family. That sounds like a dumb, Trey started to say, but Flossie elbowed him. What are you thinking, Belle? Albie asked me. I stared at the mouse's twitching nose. What if we called him Muffin of Mars? I stared at the mouse. Simple, Flossie said. I love it. Everyone nodded. Welcome to the American settlement, Muffin of Mars, I whispered. Chapter 13, Love and Attention. One inhabitant of our settlement wasn't happy about Muffin. Leo. He prowled around Muffin's habitat like the mouse was a piece of chocolate cake he couldn't wait to taste. After he almost knocked the habitat off the table in the recreation room, we decided to move it somewhere with less cat traffic. The algae farm. Phineas was delighted to have the mouse there. He even made special peanut butter algae mouse treats. You like these treats, don't you, darling? He crooned as he fed them to the mouse. I think he loved Muffin even more than we kids did. He's a good mouse, I said. He asked. It's a female. Oh, I said. How can you tell? Grow up on a farm and you'll learn fast, he said with a wry look. Do you think we should have saved 2 mice? I asked him. Won't Muffin get lonely without a friend? She doesn't have anyone to play with. Kind of like me these days. Ah, I see, he said and gave me a knowing look. We'll just have to give her lots of love and attention then, right? Right, I said. We watched Muffin scratch the edges of the walls of the habitat as if trying to get out. Poor thing wants her freedom, Phineas observed. But it's not safe outside for her, I said. He gave me a long look. I suppose, he said, but living in a cage is no kind of life, even for a mouse. Flossie poked her head through my door. Psst, come to our room. I looked up from my book. I'd been reading about mice. No way, I said. Last time I did that, I ended up in a sling. Oh, come on, silly. This is about Meems's birthday. It's perfectly safe. Okay, I said. But if any of you talk about stealing a rover, I'm leaving. When I got to the older kid's room, she shut the door. Albie, Trey, and Vera were already there. It's Meems's birthday next week, Flossie said. We're going to throw her a surprise party. We are? I asked. Yes, I have it all figured out, she said, and you're going to help. The next morning, I nosed around the shelves in Sai's workshop. We needed duct tape to hang the decorations on the walls. Flossie figured I could grab a roll on my dust rounds. When I left the mess hall, Sai was still eating breakfast. The duct tape wasn't in its usual bin, so I started to dig around in the supplies. Finding where Sai had hidden it didn't take long. It was next to a box marked Sai, personal. I was curious, so I opened it. The box was full of random things. A pirate hat, a folded piece of paper that said Je t'aime, a red t-shirt with the words, "We did it," and a dry, crisp-looking plant. It was purple and looked like an earth flower. When I lifted it to my nose, it still had a faint perfume. At the bottom of the box was an award of some kind. First place award. First annual Mars Halloween party. Best costume, Sai. Country, USA. I heard footsteps coming down the hall, so I shoved everything into the box and pushed it back. Then I rushed to the wall where the filter was and pretended to empty the dust. Sai stopped short when he saw me. Well, you got an early start today. I grinned. Yep, already done. When I went to walk past him with my bucket, his hand came down on my shoulder. Luckily, it was my good one. I don't recall giving you that duct tape, he said. Ah, dust it. What are you up to? He asked. Nothing, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Belle? We're throwing a surprise party for memes and need duct tape to hang the decorations, I said in a rush. I see, he studied me. In that case, you may take the duct tape. Thanks, I said. By the way, I'm looking forward to trying your carrot cake, he said and turned away. My mouth dropped open. Like I said, it was impossible to keep a secret on Mars. The night before Meems's birthday, I went up to Salty Bill as he was putting things away in the kitchen. Would it be okay if I did some cooking tonight? I asked. I just thought I would make some cookies. He gave me a hard look. Finally, he said, Make sure you clean up when you're done. I don't want to find a sink full of dishes tomorrow morning. Sure, no problem, I told him. Also, he said, use toasted pecans in the batter. That's my trick for a great carrot cake. I shook my head. Honestly, was there anyone Phineas hadn't told? Albie offered to help me bake the cake. He was the best cook of all of us kids. He patiently walked me through the recipe step by step. It was late by the time I'd finished spreading the white icing on the cake. I stood back to admire my work. What do you think? I asked him. He said. What if we decorated the top with more carrots? Stick them in the cake so they look like they're growing out of the icing? Ooh, that's a great idea, I said. I'll go grab a few from the farm. I'll start cleaning up this mess, he said, looking at the pile of dirty bowls we'd used. Okay, I said. Leo was sniffing and scratching the door to the algae farm when I arrived. Meow, he said, which meant, let me in cat. Sorry, Leo, I told him. You can't eat muffin. I opened the door and slid inside, closing it quickly so Leo couldn't follow. That didn't stop him from yowling. A familiar sight greeted me. Phineas was asleep at the table, his head pillowed on his arms. Across from him, Muffin darted around her habitat. I headed back to get the carrots. The tops were tall, fuzzy, and green. I pulled one up from the container. It was fat and perfect. In short order, I'd harvested my carrots. I was carrying them out when I paused by the table where Phineas was sleeping. "Did you tell every single person in the settlement that I was making this cake for memes?" I asked him. Phineas slept on. "It's supposed to be a surprise," I said. "Please tell me you didn't tell memes." He didn't speak. Across from him, Muffin started running madly on the wheel we'd made for her habitat. The wheel rattled noisily, but Phineas slept on. It was odd. "Phineas," I said, shaking him gently, and then froze. Because something was very wrong. His body was so still. Too still. I leaned closer and touched his chest to see if it was moving, and it wasn't. That's when I started screaming. Page 121, via secure communication. Date, 6/2/2091. From Commander Dexter. To U.S. Terrestrial Command. Message, situation report. Yesterday, at approximately 2205 hours, Mission Specialist Phineas Peck was found unresponsive in the algae farm. Attempts to resuscitate him were unsuccessful. He was declared deceased at 2244 hours. Please notify next of kin. Cy Dexter, Commander. Expeditionary and Settlement Team, United States Territory, Mars. Chapter 14 is called Cake. Instead of a birthday party, there was a funeral. We put on environmental suits and climbed to the surface. It was a shockingly beautiful day. The sky was clear and light. Albie and Cy carried the bag with Phineas's body to the little graveyard. They buried him in the dusty red Martian soil, wrapped in his favorite thing, a thick piece of algae paper. "You are our teammate, our companion, our family. We will miss you, Phineas," Cy said, his voice cracking over my headset. I looked at Memes. Tears were running down her face the same way they were running down mine. "Rest now, old friend," Cy said. "You've earned it." Then we piled rocks on top of the grave, and everyone cried. After the burial, we gathered in the mess hall to have lunch. I couldn't stop looking at Phineas's empty chair, remembering what had happened yesterday. It was a fuzzy blur like a digi-reel on fast-forward all jumbled images. Cy and Ileana running into the algae farm, Phineas's still body, the look of horror on Cy's face. Ileana hitting the alarm, Memes running in with her bag, her holding my shoulders and telling me I had non-med shock. Then giving me a shot in the arm as I cried and cried. How everything seemed to drift away into the darkness. Phineas was dead. "Are you okay?" Flossie asked me from across the table. I shook my head. How could I possibly be okay when Phineas was dead? I would never be able to talk to him again. Never hear his laugh. He was gone, and nothing would ever be the same. After Memes' shot yesterday, I slept for a while, and when I woke up, I was back on my own bed. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a bad dream, but then I saw Albie's tear-stained face and knew it had actually happened. Something else was bothering me too. Memes said Phineas had died of a heart attack. She said it was typical for old people. I know she thought she was being reassuring, but I was horrified because when I looked at the grown-ups, all I could see was gray hair and wrinkles. Under the lunch table, I felt fur brush my ankle and looked down at Leo. "Meow," he said. He looked sad too. I couldn't help but wonder if Leo had known all along. Was that why he had been scratching at the door? Had he been trying to save Phineas? At the far end of the table, Cy took a deep breath. "I've informed command of Phineas's death. They'll notify his next of kin." "Is his brother still alive?" Ileana asked. "He died last year," Meme said. "But there's a nephew, I believe. I'll send personal condolence messages from all of us." That sounded nice, but who would send a condolence message to us? Who would tell us how sorry they were that we'd lost a member of our family? Because that's what Phineas had been, family. A wave of sadness washed over me. Darby laughed. "Do you remember the time Phineas thought he discovered a new species?" Salty Bill chuckled. "I'd nearly forgotten about that." "What happened?" Flossie asked. Memes turned to me with a smile. He'd gone outside and collected a sample of something. He was convinced it was some new organism. Darby picked up the story. He put it in a dish, and lo and behold, something grew from the sample. He was so excited. When he studied the new species, he realized that it was just a booger, Meme said. A booger? I asked. Yes, Meme said. One of you children had stuck a booger in the sample. Whose was it? I asked. Put it this way. He told me he would name the organism T. Vera, Meme said. Vera reddened and everybody laughed. Around the room it went, one story after another, and with each story my heart felt a little lighter. I had so many favorite memories of Phineas, it was hard to pick just one, but I think it was the time he taught me how to plant seeds. Dig a hole, drop the seed, cover it with soil, add a little water, and wait. I still remembered my amazement when the green sprouts had finally burst through the soil. Flossie walked out of the kitchen carrying the cake. Happy birthday, Memes, she said with a sad smile. We were going to throw you a surprise party, but it's carrot cake, Albie said. It was Belle's idea. Oh, Belle, Memes said, looking teary-eyed. Thank you. Flossie sliced the cake and passed plates down the table, but I just stared at my piece. Aren't you going to eat it? Salty Bill asked me. It feels bad eating cake when Phineas isn't here, I whispered. He'd want you to enjoy it, he said gruffly. He was never one to waste a piece of cake. That made me smile because it was true. So I ate my slice. And that is where I will stop for tonight. Make sure you brush your teeth. Do any homework that you have left to do. Have your parents sign your agenda and have sweet dreams. I'll see you back at school tomorrow morning. Bye.